What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Conor McGregor fires back at Sean O'Malley. Conor McGregor has traded verbal shots with plenty of fighters over the years, but it's been interesting to see how an online feud between the Notorious star and Sean O'Malley has developed. Ever since McGregor referenced O'Malley's positive test for the banned substance Ostarine back in 2018 and 2019, while blasting boxing's Ryan Garcia for his PED flag, the rivalry kicked off. It should be noted, however, that while O'Malley was suspended for the positive tests, USADA determined the source of the banned substance was likely tainted supplements. Well, more recently, McGregor shared a video clip of him hitting pads. O'Malley, however, clearly wasn't impressed with what he saw out of his former idol. A brief social media spar incurred. Slow and sloppy. Throw the same shot on the pads, and let's see your version, lad. That would unalive a mother effer for real. That shot. It's nice work. Cheer up. It's not a bop bop, it's a bop bop. You get me? 18-ounce gloves. What do you think? Did Conor look a tad slow in the clip? Now, if Conor still physically resembled the dude who ended the glorious reign of Jose Aldo back in 2015, then maybe this feud with O'Malley would spark more talk about them fighting. But McGregor is so jacked these days, it looks like he'd have to undergo a serious cut to make welterweight, never mind even attempting to make 155 pounds. So a fight with the current bantamweight king seems very unlikely. Up next, Islam Makhachev provides update on injury. Following Islam Makhachev's memorable win over Dustin Poirier in June, the consensus was that we'd likely see the lightweight champion compete at the UFC's October card in Abu Dhabi. But it seems pretty clear now that will not be the case. Since Makhachev has fought in Abu Dhabi on numerous occasions, UFC 308 seemed like a logical event for Makhachev. Further, the talk was Makhachev could rematch Arman Tsarukyan at the October 26th event. But more recently, Islam revealed he's dealing with a hand injury and that he didn't know if it might require surgery. While speaking with the media ahead of the UFC's card this weekend in Abu Dhabi, Makhachev provided the following update on his hand.
It's good, it's small things. Part of this sport. I have small injury right now. I cut my half ligament, and we'll see. Next 10 days I have to wear these things, and doctor will make decision.
Also, recently, Makhachev's striking coach Javier Mendez informed Helen Yee that there's no way the lightweight king will be ready to fight at UFC 308. So now it remains to be seen what the doctors say when Islam is checked next. The champ has repeatedly expressed an interest in fighting at UFC 309 in November. But given that card is expected to feature Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, and due to Islam's hand issue, it seems kind of unlikely that we'll see him fight at that event. But you never know. The UFC does typically stack the cards for Madison Square Garden. Okay, now let's take a look at Tom Aspinall sends a message to Jon Jones. You won't find Tom Aspinall dismissing the argument that Stipe Miocic is one of the best heavyweights this planet has ever seen. But according to the UFC's interim champion, Jon Jones is keenly aware that fighting Miocic is a much easier bout for him than throwing down with Aspinall. If you follow our channel, you know that for months now, the internet has been ablaze with talk about Jones and Aspinall fighting. But on account of the UFC's plans for Jones Miocic, and because Bones has repeatedly said he's fighting Stipe next, we all know that we have to wait for that fight. Or do we? Well, ahead of UFC 304, Dana White confirmed that the winner of the Tom Aspinall-Curtis Blades fight will fight the winner of Jones Miocic. But following Aspinall's quick win over Blades, prayers to the MMA gods for Jones versus Aspinall next haven't gone away. So, while talking with MMA Fighting recently, Aspinall was understandably asked about Jones and the fact by all accounts the fight with Miocic proceeding. Here's some of what the interim champion had to say.
John's got one win in the heavyweight division, I've got 9 all finishes. So 8, I think, all finishes, I'm not sure. But I've done a lot more. I'm not saying my resume is better than Jon Jones' because it isn't. It's not even close. He's way better than me. But as far as heavyweights go, I'm the best heavyweight in the world. Jon Jones is not an idiot, even though he might act like it sometimes. He's not unintelligent. He like as you say, Stipe, one of the best heavyweights, if not the best heavyweight of all time. Stipe is also 43 years old, coming off a 3-year layoff, and his last fight was a knockout loss. You know what I mean? So obviously he's going to want to take that fight before me. because it's easier, way easier, way easier. And he knows that I'm the tougher fight for him.
It's an interesting take, and even Miocic's biggest fans have to concede that there are a lot of question marks around the legend at this point. Not only on account of his age, but as Tom mentioned, we haven't seen him fight since 2021. Now, you could possibly argue that if the UFC was to do it all over again, maybe they wouldn't have gone all in on promoting Jones Miocic, especially Dana, who has repeatedly insisted that Jones Miocic is the fight that makes sense. And maybe Jones would argue that when they were planning for his first title defense at heavyweight, Aspinall was nowhere near the star he is now. Of course, none of that speaks to whether Jones is deliberately ducking a fight with Aspinall by opting for Miocic. Dana White announced new fights for UFC Abu Dhabi, which includes a new fight for Khamzat Chimaev. Here's what Dana had to say.
What's up, everybody? I'm back with another fight announcement live from the Etihad Arena in Fight Island, Abu Dhabi. It's UFC 308, the main event. Undefeated lightweight champ Ilia Topuria looks to make his first title defense against the legend and BMF Max Holloway. Ilia is coming off a knockout win over Alex Volkanovski earlier this year. 13 of his 15 wins have come by finish, and his last 4 fights have earned him performance bonuses. He is the best combat sport athlete to come out of Spain, and his career is coming full circle because he made his UFC debut in Abu Dhabi. Max Holloway, coming off one of the most incredible knockouts in history, defeating Justin Gaethje to win the BMF belt in the final second of their fight at UFC 300. Max holds the record for most strikes landed, most featherweight wins, most featherweight finishes, and third longest UFC win streak at 13. The co-main event will be 5 rounds between the number 3 ranked middleweight Robert Whittaker and 11th ranked Khamzat Chimaev. This fight was supposed to take place in June, but Khamzat got ill, and Whittaker, being the badass that he is, accepted Alaskarov on short notice. Chimaev is undefeated, 13-0 with 11 finishes, and 8 of those coming in the very first round. He made his debut on Fight Island, fighting twice in 10 days. Also, the number 2 ranked heavyweight Cyril Gane versus the number 3 ranked Alexander Volkov. Cyril Gane is the former interim champ. He's one of the most dangerous strikers in the division, and he's also won 3 fights by submission. Volkov is a 48-fight veteran with 24 knockouts in his career. He's currently on a 4-fight win streak, with 3 of those coming by finish. Also, number 2 ranked Magomed Ankalaev versus the number 5 ranked Alexander Rakic. Ankalaev is 18-1 with 10 wins by knockout. Rakic has 9 knockouts in his 14 career wins. October 26th, UFC 308 from the Etihad Arena in Fight Island, Abu Dhabi. Tickets go on sale Tuesday, and you can watch the fight on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. I will see you all in Abu Dhabi.
Up next, Conor McGregor roasts Jake Paul for pay-per-view numbers. Leading up to Jake Paul's recent boxing match with Mike Perry, it seemed like there was decent buzz for the fight, but according to initial reports, it looks like the fight tanked in terms of pay-per-view purchases. And guess what? Conor McGregor is loving it. Paul was supposed to box Mike Tyson last month, but when the legend had to withdraw due to health issues, Perry stepped up. Initially, McGregor publicly rooted for Perry on account of the fact that he was one of the BKFC's biggest stars, and Conor recently bought a stake in the promotion. But following Perry's loss, and perhaps more importantly, his announcement he's creating his own hybrid rules boxing promotion, McGregor proclaimed Platinum was fired from BKFC. So when initial reports regarding pay-per-view numbers for Paul Perry were shared, Conor didn't hold back. The latest pay-per-view numbers for the Nate Diaz vs. Jorge Masvidal boxing match on television pay-per-view would be around 9,500, and you'd estimate it to work out to be around 30K. For Jake Paul vs. Mike Perry, it's at 7,500, and you'd work that out to be about 25K. But we're days out from this one, and 26 days from the other one, so Paul vs. Perry should end up being the larger of the two. Nothing large even if you add the two. Hashtag call me, hashtag bums. Not surprisingly, the pay-per-view numbers, or lack thereof, drew plenty of reactions online. I have no idea why anyone would pay to see either. Now, it should be noted that there have been other reports that said, with international sales included, the pay-per-view numbers are likely over 50,000. But even if that's accurate, compared to prominent boxing and UFC cards, those numbers are super low. Up next, Belal Muhammad and Alexander Volkanovski go back and forth. Chances are, an online dust-up between Belal Muhammad and Alexander Volkanovski wasn't on many people's radars, if anyone's for that matter. But following Muhammad's championship win at UFC 304, here we are. Leading up to the recent Manchester card, Volkanovski reportedly said he thinks he matches up well with Muhammad. As you surely know by now, not only did Muhammad shock many in the MMA world by ending Leon Edwards' reign, how he dominated much of the fight with his wrestling really dropped jaws. Since his massive victory, Muhammad appeared on John Anik and Kenny Florian's podcast. While doing so, the new champion relentlessly fired back at his doubters, including Volk.
Cry, right? Cry. You guys were hating. All these guys wanted to come out. Volkanovski, man, yeah, I think Belal's a good matchup for me if I fight him. Shut up, bro. I'll smack the hell out of you. All these guys, right? You go, there's nobody in the UFC that'll beat me. There's nobody in the UFC that I can't look at and tell you my path to victory. I look at all these guys, all these opponents. You keep putting me as the underdog, and I'm going to keep going out there and dominating them. This wasn't a hard fight. It was an easy fight, and I said it was going to be easy.
That prompted the following fiery response from the former featherweight king. Belal, you have every reason to hate on what I said about you being a good stylistic matchup for me, but I truly believe that even after your last fight, you didn't show me anything different. You still mad because I accidentally missed your call. Pathetic. Say shut up, I'll smack the ish out of you to my face and see what happens. Which led to Belal posting this. Well, come find out. And then Belal's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, weighed in with this. Volk, you know everybody loves you, but man, listen, give the man his flowers. You and Leon are cool, and you are not happy Belal won. And it's okay, because he is your friend. He proved everyone wrong on Saturday. It was a one-sided fight. Now, all this makes for some super interesting drama, and sure, it would be fascinating to see how Volkanovski fares against Muhammad, but the chances of this fight happening anytime soon, in an octagon anyways, are slim to none. Muhammad Mokaev treated UFC staff horribly. When Dana White announced the news the UFC wouldn't be bidding on the services of Muhammad Mokaev, he hinted that the promotion had other issues with the flyweight, aside from his altercations with Manel Kape. Now, it looks like Steve Erceg has provided some insights into what those issues could be. Before Mokaev fought and defeated Kape at UFC 304, the two made headlines for out-of-cage battles. Earlier this year, it was reported Kape had sucker punched Mokaev outside the Performance Institute in Vegas, before Mokaev apparently returned the favor during UFC 304 fight week. In that instance, however, it was reported Mokaev had asked Kape to bury the hatchet and take a photo with him, before he allegedly struck the contender. So when White announced at UFC 304 they had no interest in re-signing Mokaev, he cited those incidents as reasons why. But White also referenced there were other issues aside from Mokaev's wrestling-heavy style. More recently, another flyweight contender, Steve Erceg, spoke with James Lynch, and while doing so, he proceeded to claim that he witnessed Mokaev treat UFC staff disrespectfully.
Getting a photo and then sucker punching him and getting your team in, and that's like unacceptable. It's coward mentality, I think. And then the way he treats people, I don't know if fans get to see it, but I don't know, it just seems like he's a little entitled and thinks he's very important, which I don't particularly like, and obviously the UFC didn't like, so hopefully he grows from here and learns a lesson.
So it'll be interesting to see whether Mokaev and his camp respond and what their take is here. But it certainly looks like for now, his run with the UFC is over. Renato Moicano fires back at Paddy Pimblett's call-out. Following Paddy Pimblett's highlight reel submission of Bobby Green at UFC 304, he made it crystal clear again he's down to fight Renato Moicano. Not surprisingly, Money is also repeating he's more than willing to battle the charismatic rising star. Moicano is currently booked to fight Benoit Saint-Denis at the UFC's upcoming September 28th card in Paris. But while discussing Paddy's most recent call-out on his Show Me the Money podcast, the Brazilian lightweight said this.
And let me tell you something, Paddy Pimblett. If you want the smoke, my brother, you be prepared because I'm gonna f*** you up, my brother. 100%. But I have to take the hats off.
Oh, shit. Yeah,
Huge
100%.
performance, you know?
Well, we said it.
I don't want to be a hater and say, he don't deserve. You know what? Motherfucker deserves to be on the top 15. That's the truth.
Yep, Moicano isn't the only person who's been heaping praise on Paddy for that win, who perhaps previously questioned whether the baddie was a legit contender. So you'd think if Moicano does get past BSD, there's a good chance we'll get to see Baddie versus Money next. The MMA community calls out Joe Rogan for his comments. Rogan spoke on the Olympics and the pay between the organization and the athletes, saying that they get little to no money versus what the Olympics generates.
The money they make is astronomical. The Olympics makes billions and billions of money in television revenue and advertising revenue. and they don't give any of it to the athletes.
So it just goes to like the
It goes to
Olympic
them.
committee.
They're just balling.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are the crazy people that are putting on the Last Supper with. That's what they're doing. It
said something like some Greek
nonsense.
Yeah. I mean,
you're
it's
pushing this weird agenda in this place where people are already getting f***ed over, right? The whole Olympics is just people getting f***ed over.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the best athletes in the world representing your country,
yeah,
at the highest level, that possibly humanly possible. For one, yeah, you should be getting compensated.
A load of money.
You know what I mean? You should
load
be
of money.
getting compensated.
Yeah. But the whole thing's completely insane. But my point is the whole Olympics are insane. They're robbing people. They're robbing the athletes. No one is tuning in. There's not billions of people all over the world tuning in just to see a bunch of pretend to be Jesus and the disciples. That's not why they're tuning in. And those people that have dedicated their entire lives to wrestle in the Olympic Games, they're not getting a scratch of that.
That's so crazy.
It's nuts.
The MMA community called out Rogan for these comments, comparing the Olympics to the UFC. Here's what the community had to say. Rogan tells us the Olympics are a giant scam because of all the money rolling in, and the athletes not getting a fair cut. I agree, Joe. Now do the UFC. Remember when Luke Thomas was on the JRE and Joe Rogan acted clueless to how badly the UFC fighters are being underpaid? Rogan is still an employee to the UFC and friends with Dana, so the bias is understandable, but just laughable. Of course he will never badmouth his employer. Would be curious to know what the UFC is spending on the Sphere venue versus total fire payout for the event. Joe has a lot of blind spots when it comes to his friends. He literally has rose-colored glasses for them. Well, not literally. Yeah, UFC is a scam. All these guys would be working 9 to 5s and 1/3 would be miserable more than likely. Get over your personal vendetta. Nobody provides a bigger platform and ability to brand yourself and capitalize off of it. This builds onto why Rogan is so effing frustrating. There's an entirely reasoned, constructive man in there, but he, by his own admission, runs down the rabbit holes of some of the dumbest takes, and by his own admission, gets had by the headlines so easily he misses the mark often. Top comments. Those steroids really getting to Belal's head. Instead of being happy and being humble, he's effing going off on everyone and their mothers. Roid rage is real. Belal might be skilled, he may be champion, but everything he says is just so annoying, sorry. 304 wasn't fair for England. It should have started proper on their time, and not ours over here. Gary saying he beat his is a 100-mile stretch. Belal acts like he's the first fighter to win after being predicted to lose.